What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershazday. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now, listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi as I say, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So, come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershazday, and boy, do we have a special guest. My man, Hal Elrod is in the house. What's up, brother?
Darius, the first thing I have to say is that I thought I talked fast, and I think you just one-upped me, dude. I'm impressed.
You cannot listen to this podcast at anything more than a 1.1 speed. That is for sure.
People have to listen to it at 0.75 just for like a normal...
Yeah, the normal brains goes like 0.8. Oh, man, I'm so pumped to have you here. I'm serious. Like, I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. We finally made it happen, man. It's so pumped to have you here to talk about you, your work, how it's changed my life, how it's changed millions of people's lives around the world. Welcome to the Greatness Machine, my friend. Let's get you ready to get this party started?
Dude, I'm so ready, and I'm honored, man. I'm honored to be here. And then what you told me before, or what you alluded to before we started recording about how the Miracle Mornings changed your life, I'm excited to hear that story. I know you said you wanted to save it and keep it fresh, but I'm really cool to be here.
Awesome. Well, listen, hey, for listeners who are new to the show, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things: people who live their passion, and those who are creating greatness in the world, and doing so despite the odds. And my friend Hal here is neither short of passion nor greatness with all of his Miracle Morning work. So, Hal, I want to, if you don't mind, I want to give a little bit of like our origin story, how we met, and then I'd love to talk a little bit more formal about your background and really like all the amazing, great things you've done in the world. Does that work for you?
Please and thank you.
So, all right. Hal Elrod is a name that I'm like one of the like last people on earth that knew your name. But it was like this thing where we have a mutual friend, John Rulin, who was like, "Oh, you're moving to Austin. You got to meet my boy Hal. You know Hal Elrod." And I'm like, "No, I have no idea."
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, I just wasn't in the know, right? And I didn't know about all the work you were doing, which is a ton of work. And so he's, "Oh, you got to meet him. He's the Miracle Morning, this, that, and the other." And then I show up here, and it's like your name keeps running by me every other second. "Oh, have you met Hal Elrod? Have you met Hal Elrod?" And there are all these guys from Cutco, the Cutco Mafia, as I call them. And so John Vroman, Justin Donald, Isaac Stegman, Amber Vilhauer. It's like all these people are all around me because I'm doing my book launch. I'm meeting a ton of people in Austin. Vroman, who you're very good friends with, is like, "Oh, you got to meet Hal." And finally, I'm like, "Man, I really got to meet Hal." And so fast forward to, it was a couple years ago, I went to the Front Row Dad's Retreat to do family core values, and we finally met, man. And it was really good to meet you. And I was excited to get to know you a little bit better. I will tell you at that point, though, I think I'd asked you a question. I said, "Man, Miracle Morning, I'm just not much of a morning person." Right. And so I was just like, "Yeah, this thing sounds great, this Miracle Morning thing, but like, I'm not a morning person. I'm a late night person." But man, I will tell you this, fast forward to this past year, I've had your book, The Miracle Morning. We're going to be talking all about your stuff. I want to go through your formal bio in a second here, on my list. And I pulled the trigger on it. One of my clients was like, "Hey, I just finished your friend's book," because he had heard, somehow I'd said I knew you. And he said, "I just finished Miracle Morning. That is like one of the best books I've ever read." And this guy is a personal growth fucking athlete. Like, he's an athlete. And so this guy's a stud, and he's a client of mine. And I was like, "All right, man, I'll go pull the trigger on this." I mean, he's just ranting and raving about how it's changing his life. And I really respect him. Yeah. And so I read your book in January, and I got to tell you this, my man, it has completely transformed my life in like ways I cannot explain. So
incredible, man. I'm so grateful to hear that, Darius. And let me ask you, so you went from not a morning person. Has that shifted? Where are you at now?
You know what? I'm still a late night person. I just sleep less, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah. I just sleep less. I just get up earlier now.
So you're doing the morning routine. What's changed? Like, let's get specific.
Well, so yeah, I do the Miracle Morning at least 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Nice. I don't necessarily always do it on the weekends, but I sometimes do.
Yeah.
So that's I'm still a newbie. But I do it every single morning. So hold on, before we go there though, I want to say this because our audience, some of them might be like, what the hell is Darius talking about with Miracle Morning?
Yeah.
And I want to honor our audience that doesn't know this. So do you mind if I give your formal bio for 2 seconds and I'll jump back to answer your question?
Yeah, again, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so guys, so for those of you that are like, what is Darius talking about this Miracle Morning thing? I mean, this looks interesting, but I don't know what this is. So Hal is an international keynote speaker. He's the best-selling author of 14 books. He's got the Miracle Morning franchise. Most notably, it's the Miracle Morning, which has been translated in 37 languages and has sold over 3 million copies, one of which was purchased by yours truly. And he's also the bestseller of The Miracle Equation. I mean, this is a book that's changed millions and millions of people's lives in hundreds of countries. There's a Miracle Morning movie on Amazon Prime and at miraclemorning.com, as well as a Miracle Morning app. And I guess for the layman, what it is it's, and the way I saw it was it's how you start your day, like set your day up for success. And so, for me, it was, oh, you got to wake up early and do all this stuff before your day begins. I'm like, this sounds like a lot of work. And so I got introduced to Miracle Morning 3 years ago. That was my initial response. But I will see being someone that's actually pulled the trigger on it. I swear to God, you can take the soundbite, you can use it on your website, and full permission. I said this to my wife. I said this to many of my business associates. I said this to my closest friends. I wish I had started doing this 15 years ago. I wish I had. The only reason I don't say further is 16 years ago, I was in my late 20s and I was probably out till 5 o'clock in the morning. So it wouldn't have worked then. But yeah, man, I'd love for you, I want to talk all about the Miracle Morning and educate our audience on it. But I'd love for you to give maybe a little bit of your origin story and how you got to writing this book and building this franchise and really what got you here.
Yeah. I'm going to start where I don't normally, but I just recently started telling this story more because I realized how impactful it's been on me, which is when I was 8 years old, I woke up to my mother screaming across the hall, and my dad was at work, and my other sister was at my grandmother's house. So at home, it was me, my mom, and my 18-month-old baby sister, Amory. And I woke up to the sound of my mom screaming, "My baby, my baby, my baby." And it sounded terrifying. And I jumped out of bed. I ran across the hall, and my mother is hunched over my year-and-a-half old sister and pushing on her chest and breathing into her mouth and giving her mouth to mouth.
Oh, shit.
And she died that morning. And my parents were devastated. Of course, our family was devastated. At 8, I don't think I really understood the gravity of death. And for me, it was more kind of confusing. I didn't know how to take it. But within a year, my mom was leading a support group for other parents who had lost their children. And my dad was leading fundraisers to raise money for the hospital that tried to save my sister's life. And so what I learned from them is that you can take your tragedy, you can take your adversity, and you can turn it into opportunities. And that when you focus on how you can serve others, you create meaning for your life that wasn't previously there. And so that laid the foundation for the rest of my life and everything that we're going to talk about today. Because when I was 20 years old, I was driving home from a Cutco speech that I had given at a Northern California division meeting, and my car was hit head on by a drunk driver at 80 miles an hour. And another car, I went spinning into oncoming traffic. Another car crashed into my driver's side door right next to me at 70 miles an hour. And immediately I broke 11 bones. My femur broke in half, my pelvis broke in 3 places, my arm broke in half, shattered my elbow, shattered my eye socket. My ear was almost completely severed, on, internal injuries. And an hour later, when they finally used the jaws of life to cut me out of the car, I died. My heart stopped beating. I bled to death, and I was clinically dead for approximately 6 minutes. They rushed me onto a helicopter and using, defibrillators, shot me back to life, hooked me up to an IV, got blood in my body, and I was brought back to life. And then I spent 6 days in a coma where I flatlined 2 more times. And when I came out of the coma, I was faced with this unimaginable reality that, they said I would never walk again. I have permanent brain damage. And I really had to look at, it's the same thing that for all of us, when we face adversity, big or small, how am I going to respond? It's the only choice that we have. I can't change what happened to me. How am I going to respond? And for me, I went, well, I can't change this. So I'm going to choose to be as proactive as I can on getting through it. And then I'm going to be like my mom and dad. I'm going to help other people. In fact, I told my dad in the hospital, I said, Dad, you know, when after I started speaking at all the Cutco events, I got really, I told you I want to be like a motivational speaker, like a Tony Robbins. And he said, yeah. I said, maybe that's why this happened. I said, I had a pretty normal life. You and mom were great parents. I didn't go through any major adversity. I was bullied growing up, normal stuff. I said, maybe that's why this happened. And I really believe that everything happens for a reason, as the old adage says, but it's our responsibility to choose the reason. I could have said the reason this happened is because life's unfair and that drunk driver's an asshole and I didn't deserve this and bad things happen and the world sucks. I could have chosen those reasons and my reality would have been born from that perspective. But I went, maybe I'm meant to overcome this and learn and grow and evolve and come out better on the other side so that I can help other people. And 3 weeks later, I took my first step and the rest is history. And then you fast forward to 2008, the economy crashes. I crash with it. I lose over half of my coaching clients, over half of my income. Gets to the point where I'm deciding between, do I pay mortgage, car payment, groceries, utilities? I'm living on credit cards. I finally stopped paying the mortgage, foreclose on my house. I'm depressed. I'm in really bad shape, not exercising, I'm just working, trying to make money. And a series of events leads to me hearing a Jim Rohn quote that changes everything, or becomes the catalyst for changing everything. Jim Rohn said, and if you're listening, this is worth writing down, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development. I'll say it one more time. Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development. And I quantified that, Darius, immediately. I went on a scale of 1 to 10, we all want level 10 success, level 10 health, level 10 financial success, level 10 relationships. But then I asked, well, if Jim Rohn's right and our level of success won't exceed our level of personal development, what's my level of personal development? And the way I would define that, if you're assessing it for yourself, it's like, who are you becoming as a person? Who are you developing yourself into? What are the beliefs and the mindset and the habits and the skills that you are developing? That is your level of personal development. And at that time, mine was at like a 2 or a 3. And I believe that's the disconnect for the majority of society is everybody wants life at a level 10, but very few people are dedicating time each day to becoming a level 10 version of who they are, living to their full potential. And so I went home, I researched what do the world's most successful people do for their personal development. I wrote down the best practices. I was looking for the one best practice and I went, what if I did all of these? What if I woke up tomorrow and I did the 6 most timeless, proven personal development practices in the history of humanity that the world's most successful people have sworn by for centuries? That would be the ultimate routine. I woke up the next morning. I did it. I didn't do it well. I was new to all these things. Within 2 months, in 2008, when the economy continued to get worse, and this is important for anybody listening right now that's experiencing the effects of our current recession or that's afraid of what's to come. When the recession got worse, I got better. I doubled my income in 2 months. I went from being in a depressive state to, I was on fire. And I started training for a 52-mile ultra marathon. And I went to my wife, and this is the bow on the story. I said, sweetheart, I can literally picture it. She was coming out of the bedroom. I was walking toward the bedroom. We met in the hall. I said, sweetheart, I just signed on 2 more coaching clients. We've officially doubled our income in the last 2 months. It's all because of this morning routine. It's like a freaking miracle. And she goes, it's your miracle morning. I go, I love that. I love that. So I started writing it down, my miracle morning. I taught it to my coaching clients. They all said, I'm not a morning person. They tried it. 13 out of 14 came back the next week and said, Hal, oh my gosh, I followed your tricks on how to beat the snooze button. I did the miracle morning and I just had the best week in my sales career. I'm running again, on and on and on. And then that's when I went, okay, if the miracle morning changed my life in 2 months and I wasn't a morning person, if it's changing my clients' lives in a matter of weeks and they're noticing significant differences, this could change anyone's life. And I have a responsibility to share it with the world. So I'm going to write a book, and took 3 years, self-published that book, didn't sell many copies for the first year, kept at it. And now, here we are. The rest is the story is history, if you will. The rest is history.
Oh my gosh, man. First of all, I'm so sorry to hear about your family's tragedy with your sister. How old were you when that happened again?
I was 8 and she was 1.5 years.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
Yeah, I always say my poor parents, everything. People go, oh, you've been through so much. I go, no. As a parent, you don't realize until you're a parent, but what my parents seeing me in the car accident was way worse than me being in the car accident, in my opinion. So yeah, they've been through a lot.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well, I am so happy that you had that moment where you lost all your stuff.
Totally,
because I mean, it's funny is like, I've talked, we have a mutual friend, Justin Donald, and I've talked to him about this a lot. Where I said, I do believe, whether you believe in a higher source or God or whatever. And I'm a person that was that was brought up without religion at all. But I've started to have these moments where I'm like, man, I'm just here to do someone like the higher power is here I'm here to do the work of the higher power and just do with me what you will. And that has led me to become a much happier person, and B, I'm like looking forward to what I'm going to do. I'm like, and it sounds to me like you had that moment where, whether through those trials and tribulations or through your own, genius, where you figured this thing out of combining these 6 practices. So I'd love to talk about the 6 practices, because, and for me, it's the easiest way I remember is with the acronym you use in the book, SAVERS. So would you mind kind of telling our audience what SAVERS is and how this works?
Yeah. The way it started, I Googled, what do the world's most successful people do for personal development? Because that Jim Rohn quote led me to believe that's what's missing from my life. I believe it is for most people. I need a rock solid personal development ritual that gets me results, right? And so when I Googled that, I was looking for the one best practice for personal development. I ended up with a list of 6. And I got overwhelmed, and I literally, Darius, I almost threw in the towel. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I was trying to figure out which is the best, but there was no clear answer. It's like, I read an article, for example, it was something like Fortune 500 CEOs who swear by meditation. And like at that time, I thought of meditation as a spiritual and or woo-woo practice. I never thought about CEOs crediting their best ideas that exploded their revenue to their daily meditation practice. So I was like, I've got to meditate, right? And then I saw an interview of Ellen DeGeneres was interviewing Will Smith. Now, this was way before the Chris Rock slap, when Will Smith's name had a very different connotation. And Ellen asked him, she said, Will, everything, you've been so successful in everything you've done, music, television, movies. How'd you go from being humble beginnings in Philly, growing up in Philadelphia, to this? He said, I learned affirmations when I was 15 years old. And I affirmed what I was committed to in my life, like the goals I had. Then I wrote down who I needed to become, like what attributes I needed to achieve those goals. Then I wrote down what I needed to do now and day by day to move in that direction and get there. And he said, I read those affirmations every day, and I just lived in alignment with them. And then I got the result that I had designed. So I'm like, I got to do affirmations. And so you go through the rest. So the V is so you got silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing, which is a fancy word for writing or journaling, but the J or the W would have made the acronym awkward. So I'm looking at the list, and I'm going, well, I don't know which one to do. And then the light bulb moment was when I went, wait, what if I did all of them?
Wow.
What if I woke up an hour earlier tomorrow, even though I'm not a morning person? But at that point, I'm like, look, if I want to change my life, I got to do something I've never done. I got to get out of my comfort zone. I can't say I'm not a morning person. It's like my circumstances are not where I want them to be. So I'm willing to get up an hour earlier to change that. And, and as you discover that how you start your day sets the tone, the context, the direction for the rest of your day. If you win the morning and you start in a peak physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state, that's who you need to be to win your life, right? To change things. And so I woke up the next morning an hour earlier. And here's the cool part, Darius, for anybody listening that's like, I'm not a morning person, well, which you weren't, I wasn't.
Yep.
In fact, we've done repeated surveys of the Miracle Morning community, which is made up of hundreds of thousands of people that we have contact info for. And time and time again, 70+% say they had never been in a morning person before they read the book, and now they wake up early every day and they love it and they would never change it, just like you said, But I woke up the next morning, and the cool thing was, at that point in my life, right, I'm in debt. My house is being foreclosed on. I'm depressed. I felt like a kid on Christmas that morning. Because like a kid on Christmas, you're looking forward to, you know what you're going to do, right? Like, I'm going to open present. It'll be awesome. I was like, this is going to be awesome. And I fumbled my way through all 6 practices because I didn't know how to meditate. It was all new to me. But even fumbling my way through doing a subpar job, at the end of that first hour, that very first day, again, this wasn't called the Miracle Morning. This was just personal development at 5 a.m. for me. At the end of that first hour, Darius, I felt incredible. I thought, if I start every day with this much clarity and energy and motivation and knowledge, and it's only a matter of time before I change myself and change my life. And I'll wrap the story up with this. I was thinking 1 year. That was my time frame. I'm like, all right, I'll get 1% better every day. 1 year from now, I can turn it all around. In less than 2 months, I more than doubled my income. I went from being in the worst shape of my life to running this ultra marathon. Did I already tell this part of the story?
I don't know. Tell it again.
Sorry. All right. And I do have brain damage. It's fair. But anyway, so and then I went to my wife and I said, I told her, right? I said that sweetheart, we've changed our life so fast, it's a miracle. And then so those savers, those 6 practices, any one of them will change your life. In fact, Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I was speaking at an event with Robert, and I was his warm-up act. He was the headliner, and I got to have dinner with him afterwards with the founders of the event, the GoBundance crew. You know GoBundance, right?
Oh, yeah, David. Yeah.
And David and those guys. And Mike, I'm David sitting there, and I had a copy of the Miracle Morning. It was signed to Robert, and it was like under the table in my computer bag. And in my head, I'm like, I want to give him a copy, but like, I'm going to look like such a dork. I'm going to look desperate. Like, this guy's worth $80 million. He's not going to read my little self-published book about waking up early. But Wayne Gretzky showed up in that moment. Not literally, but the quote, "You miss all the shots you don't take."
Yeah.
And I was like, well, there's nothing to lose. So I awkwardly approached Robert. I'm like, hey, your book changed my life. I signed a copy of mine for you. Read it or whatever, right? And I thought he'd never read it. 3 weeks later, I get an email from his assistant, and she says, Hal, Robert has read the Miracle Morning 3 times in the last 3 weeks. And my jaw hit the floor right there. I'm like, what? She said, it's changing his life. He does it almost every day. He got his wife. They're doing it together, and he wants to interview you on Rich Dad Radio. Yeah. And I was like, this is a dream come true. So I go on Rich Dad Radio, and he's talking about the savers and each of these practices. And by the way, we can dive in if you want. Like, we can go advanced tips on any of these if you want. But I want to recap what Robert said. At the end of the interview, he said, Hal, before you wrote the Miracle Morning, he said, every person on the planet attributes their success to at least one of the savers, as you outlined in the book. Maybe it's their books they've read. Maybe it's their meditation practice. Maybe it's their visualization. He said, but I had never heard of anyone that did all 6, maybe they 1 or 2, maybe 3 at the most. I had never met anyone that did all 6 of those practices. He said, and if you do any one of the savers, it'll change your life. But he said, I think you titled the book correctly, because since I've started all 6, I'm experiencing miracles in my life. And I thought that's just a great way of summing it up, right? Any one of those savers will change your life. When you do all 6 in one ritual in the morning, and by the way, you don't have to do an hour. It can be 30 minutes. There's a chapter in the book called the 6-Minute Miracle Morning with a 6-minute version. So there's never an excuse if I don't have time. But when you do all 6, you experience the profound combined benefits of all 6 practices that, again, if any one will change your life, doing all 6 is a game changer.
Oh, man. I love it. I love that story with Robert Kiyosaki too. So I want to talk about, I'm going to use myself as a case study, because I'm sure some listeners are like, oh, I'm not a morning person. I'm going to tell you, I said it to you the first time I met you, and I meant it. I'm like, I come from a family of people that like all stay up late. Yeah. Like, I remember my dad staying up to like 2:00 in the morning every night. My mom would stay up reading till 1 in the morning. My brother stays up late. I stay up late. My sister stays up late. We're the spouses that go to bed last in our families. And so for me, I was like, I just can't fall asleep early. It's hard for me to. And I even said to you earlier, I'm like, I still am going to bed kind of late. But what I found was, so first and foremost, I am not a morning person. And so when someone says that, okay, fair enough, you're not a morning person. But I will tell you this, waking up earlier, I look forward to it and I enjoy it. And it's like my own, I mean, and I'll tell you what, the more time I get, the better. I do like an hour and a half on this thing, which some people are like, an hour and a half. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. It's an hour and a half of me pouring into myself.
Yeah.
It's like a gift I give myself every morning that by the time I'm done, I'm like, most people are waking up and I'm like 90 minutes into my day. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I wake up at 5:30 in the morning.
Nice.
And I've just crushed 90 minutes of just badassness. Yeah. And I feel like $1,000,000. So anyone that says you can't do it, they're wrong. And what I'd love to start with is some of your tactics around getting up early if you have a tough time doing it. Because I'll tell you what, those were really, really helpful for me at first. Yeah. Now I don't need them, but at first they made the difference. So I'd love for you to kind of go into those.
Totally. And so there's a chapter in the book called the 5-step snooze-proof wake-up strategy. And this was assembled from not only trial and error, but like when before my first Miracle Morning, I Googled how to beat the snooze button. And I started just reading article after article and started like combining of what are the best of these strategies. And I'll try to go through these in order. I'll at least get through a few, if not all of them. So number one is you've got to set an empowering intention before bed. So in the Miracle Morning book, there's a link to my own bedtime affirmations that I created for myself. And here's the premise for this. Think about this. Your first thought in the morning is almost always as whatever the last thought was you had before bed. And maybe more accurately is to say your mental and emotional state in the morning is whatever mental and emotional state you dwell in before you fall asleep. Because your subconscious works on it all night long. If you go to bed stressed, you typically wake up feeling stressed. So I thought about when was the time in my life that I was most excited to wake up when it was effortless. For me, it was Christmas. If you didn't celebrate Christmas, think about your first day back to school to see all your friends, or going on a vacation where you got to catch an early flight. You've been looking forward to it for months. As soon as the alarm goes off, you're out of bed, grabbing your suitcase, ready, right? So I deconstructed that. I thought, what is it about those mornings that make it so that it's easy to get up, even if you slept terribly, right? Like when you were a kid on Christmas, or when I was a kid on Christmas, I didn't get good sleep because I could barely fall asleep. I was so excited, tossing and turning, right? I probably got like no deep sleep, but I woke up and I jumped out of bed. I was energized. And so what I realized is that, or I asked myself, could I recreate the experience of waking up on Christmas morning every single day? And I went, well, what about it makes it that way? And I thought, well, number one, I know what I'm doing in the morning. What I'm doing, I view as enjoyable, beneficial. It's something I'm actually excited about and looking forward to. So I wrote up these bedtime affirmations that basically say, no matter how many hours of sleep I'm getting tonight, I'm going to wake up tomorrow feeling energized, feeling excited. I can't wait to do my Miracle Morning, on and on. It's like a whole page, right? So that's number one. Set your empowering intention before bed. Because again, if your last thought is, I'm going to wake up tomorrow when the alarm goes off, I'm going to jump out of bed, I'm going to be excited, it's going to be great. That's the first thought in the morning was, oh, morning's here. Time to be excited, energized, and jump out of bed. It's a game changer. Number two, you've got to store your alarm clock, whether it's your phone or whatever, as far across the room as possible. And this is a game changer. I was once speaking at an EO event in New York City, and the person introducing me said, I hope Hal tells you about this one tip, because this tip was the game changer for me. And if it wasn't for this, I might still be snoozing and not doing the Miracle Morning. And it's moving the alarm clock across the room. Here's why. If your alarm clock is within arm's reach on your bedside table, I don't care who you are, your level of discipline when you're still half asleep or 90% asleep when the alarm goes off, even if it's me at a hotel and I forget to move my phone away from me, I'll hit the snooze button because you do it half unconscious. You just reach over, I'm going back to bed, right? Mm-hmm. But if you have to get out of bed when the alarm goes off, you are now 10 times more awake than when you were, one eye open, reaching over to the nightstand. If you have to walk into your bathroom, which is where I keep my, right? You're now up, awake, and it's 10 times easier to stay awake. And then you go right into brushing your teeth, washing your face. Here's what I found. every minute that you're awake, I mean, every second, you acclimate to being awake. So once you're upright, you're more awake. If you just walk over, turn your alarm, and then mindlessly start brushing your teeth, for 60 seconds or 2 minutes, every one of those seconds, you are waking up. And now at the end of the toothbrushing, you're far less tempted or likely to go back under those covers. And then the next step is you've got to drink a full glass of water, because when you haven't drinking water for 6, 7, 8 hours while you're sleeping, you are dehydrated by default. And dehydration and fatigue go hand in hand. A lot of times when you're dehydrated any time of the day, you just need water, not sleep, right? So those are the first 4 steps. I'll just tease the last step you got to read the book for, but those are the big ones.
I will tell you, the getting up, right, and drinking the water, for me, those two, and the water's in a different room, and I only have to walk three steps. I literally put it 3 steps because I don't want to. The other thing I do, if you have a spouse that's sleeping that doesn't wake up that early, is I play Midsummer's Night Dream like alarm. So it's like literally like symphony music that's light because it's pleasant because my wife's like, dude, bro, what are you doing? Like, you're waking me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and because she's not yet doing it. So I found was those 2 things, and then the washing of the face. I mean, total game change. Brushing the teeth. I mean, you're up, you're awake, and I'll save the last step.
It's so simple. And that's the point, is you want mindless activities that take virtually no energy, effort, or focus for those first 3 minutes that you're up, because you go through them like a zombie, and then now you're unzombified, after the first few minutes.
Yeah, it really is. It's, I know people are like, oh, really? I'm like, no, really. Like, you're talking to someone that, like, I go to bed, my average bedtime's still about 11:30. I just wake up at 5. And I was an 8-hour guy before this. So I went from being an 8-hour guy to, I was like, I just need 8 hours, to like, now I'm good with 6. And I think one of the main reasons for that, honestly, is because that extra self-care that's happening in the morning just energizes me and gives me, like, I work out every day now, as opposed to 3 or 4 times a week. I'll work out 6 days a week, you know? So I just need less sleep. And it's funny, what you said is so true. I normally wake up about 30 minutes before my alarm goes off. And it's like, my alarm's 5:30 and I'm up at 4:59. I look and I'm like, why am I waking up right now? And it's because I'm looking forward to it. It's amazing. I mean, it is so, I'm telling you, if you're not a morning person, you have to read the book, because literally Hal is giving you a gift of A, more hours of your day, and B, more hours for you to pour into yourself, which is unbelievable when you start doing it every day, when you start doing it on the reg. I want to talk to you about something I do, and I want to get your opinion on this. So after I get up, I like coffee. So I actually spend about 15 to 20 minutes drinking coffee before I start my miracle morning. What are your is that a no-no? Am I breaking the rules?
No, I think it's fine as long as you drink water first. And I'll mention that for folks listening. Like, coffee is usually the first beverage of choice for people, but it's a diuretic, which it means it's going to further dehydrate you. So if you go from sleep to coffee, you're going from, hey, I'm dehydrated, so I'm going to drink coffee, which will give me kind of an illusion of energy for a little bit. And then I'm going to feel worse later because I dehydrated an already dehydrated body. So the idea is just drink that full glass of water. And then while you're making the coffee or whatever, I usually I pound the water like I was a college kid at a keg party just to get it in, and then I re-pour my second glass and I keep it there to sip. But yeah, no problem with coffee, just as long as you make sure that water's first.
Okay, cool. So I wanted, do you mind if I read you some of my affirmations that Dude, I do?
That'd be awesome.
Okay, I've never been an affirmation person. I was like, oh, that shit's bullshit. And then I kind of got into Dr. Joe Dispenza and how do you talk to yourself. But one of the things I realized and is that it's kind of your point, like, who am I trying to be, right? What am I committed to? Because in the past, I do stuff like, you're going to, honestly, it was my ego. I was like picking these crazy things that I hadn't yet done that I wanted to do. And I was like, no, this doesn't feel authentic. This feels like just feels like I'm like trying to give myself a pep talk. And I twisted it and I'm like, no, I'm going to make this about who am I when I'm my best self, like today, and what am I committed to? And I'm just going to remind myself of those first thing in the morning. So I'm going to read you them right now. I go, and I read something yesterday that says, don't say I, say you, or use your name in third person. Do you have any thoughts around that, or does it matter?
Ooh, please send me whatever if you can find that article, because I do that all the time. Where I often, when I have a realization or breakthrough, I write Hal, comma, you really need to stop doing this or start doing this. So yeah, so I don't know exactly the psychology behind it, but I find it more effective. To me, like a message written to me from me is more like impactful than an I am statement. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what it was? It's Matt Higgins. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was a shark on Shark Tank. He wrote a book. He has a brand new book out called Burn the Boats. He's actually going to be on the show in a couple of weeks. Like, really good book, by the way. But he talks about it in that book.
Okay.
And I was going to tell you, yesterday we interviewed James Altucher. You know him?
I love James. Yeah.
So I was like, you're sick. You're combining all the 6 best practices. We talked about it on the episode, which it comes out in a few weeks. And basically he calls it idea sex. It's where you combine multiple ideas together. But yeah, I was like, oh, it's total idea sex. Anyway, all right, I'm going to read you a couple of mine. You are a loving, caring father, partner, husband, and friend. You are smart, likable, and trustworthy. You deserve to have the success you desire. You are great at making money and have the ability to create unlimited value in the world. You're disciplined and have the willpower to eat the right fuel and have the health and wellness you desire. You're strong both mentally and physically and enjoy the process of increasing this strength through exercise and education daily. You're committed to exercising 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week. You're committed to eating 2,000 calories or less with 150 grams of protein or more. You're committed to doing your food journal. You're committed to being hyper-focused on coaching, private equity, and podcasting. You're committed to spending 15 minutes per day minimum with each person you deeply love. Mariah, my wife, Rumi, and Pablo, one-on-one. You're committed to waking up at or before 5:30 a.m. in the morning, and it goes on and on from there.
Nice, dude. That's awesome, man. And how does it feel to read those, right, to yourself every day?
It's so I do 2 things. First of all, obviously I meditate before, so that's the second thing I do is my affirmations. And so I meditate for 25 minutes. I do transcendental meditation. I come out of that. What I found was sometimes I'll kind of run through them too fast. So I stop myself and I'm like, you need to be fully present because you're talking to yourself now, man. And this is the human you want to be. And what I found was that awareness, that mindfulness, it's just like keeps kind of like nudging me. And I just have more of a consciousness of who the human I'm trying to show up to be in the world. And it's very subtle, but it feels good. And so you mentioned a moment ago, and I want to say this. So I've been in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. I've been a member for 17 years. And in EO, we're in forums, groups where we meet once a month and we kind of give our highs and lows in our life and stuff like that. And last month, this is a month after starting Miracle Morning, in one of my groups is a large company group. Average company revenue is 100 million or more to be in this group, I qualified for my previous company. And we rate each of our business, personal, and family. And I do it in this order. I do family, personal, business, because family is always first. And you rate on a scale 1 to 10. And it was the first time I'd ever scored myself a 10 for personal, ever in 7 years.
Wow.
And the other thing that happened was when I went to personal highs, I said what they were. And when I went to personal lows, I said, I have none. I said, this has never happened to me in 17 years.
Wow.
So for 7 years, I've been scoring myself. First time I ever gave myself a 10. And for 17 years, I've been giving personal highs and personal lows. I've never had one time I did not have a personal low until this time.
That's incredible, man.
Think about that. It's had that profound of a change on me. So I'm just in a constant positive state,
So that tells me either the Miracle Morning works or it brainwashes you into thinking everything's okay. It's one of the two.
Yeah. I'll take it either way.
Yeah, either way, life's good, right?
So it doesn't matter, right? Like, who cares which one it is? Like the fact that I feel the way I feel is all that matters.
Totally.
And so, I've gone through a pretty massive life transformation personally over the last, couple years, especially in the last 9 months or so. But this it's like going vertical, right? I'm a person that suffered from anxiety, Hal, for 44 years until this past summer. And this I mean, I was feeling great before I started doing this, but this, it's like going from good to great, where you're like, I'm awesome, man. I was talking to John and Tatiana, our friends, about this, and I said, I'm in a new level, and I told John specifically, I said, Hal's work took me to the next level.
Wow.
So,
wow. Well, first of all, congratulations, man. I mean, it makes me, I'm just so happy to hear how, that must feel incredible to go, I'm at a 10, personally, and I've got no, like, dude, especially after what's the, I don't know if it's, I'm sure you shared on the podcast, I'm guessing, but what's the life transformation been in the last 9 months? I'm curious. I don't know about it.
Yeah, I actually haven't talked about it. I've kind of talked about it in bits and pieces. So I do solos. We were talking about doing solo podcasts before the show. So a lot of my solos are me just talking about things I've learned throughout my life. Yeah. So for me, it was, I read Ed Milet's book, The Power of One More, which is a great book if you haven't read it. And I had kind of this pivot, this epiphany moment where I was like, I reframed the way I was thinking about my life, where the big thing was, who am I? What thoughts am I letting kind of live in my head? And what I found was I was letting a lot of these like lower resonant thoughts, like greed and envy and just stuff that's like icky shit, right? Yeah. That even as much as I don't identify with that, that's what was creeping in. And I was dwelling on like, things of the past. And I realized I just didn't want to do that anymore. And then I decided I was just going to like think happy thoughts. Like I just made that decision, nice. Think good thoughts, be joyful, be grateful. And the biggest thing I just kind of hit on it, which is part of your miracle morning when I scribe, is gratitude. And what I realized was for 44 years, I'd lived my life as an ungrateful person.
Wow. That's a powerful breakthrough.
Yeah. Can you imagine like realizing that you're an ungrateful human being and then all of a sudden you decide to like become grateful?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's simple, but it's profound. So one of the reasons I love the Miracle Morning is when I scribe, in that section on scribing, I say, what am I grateful for? And like this morning, I was grateful for my business partners. I was grateful for getting ready for a party I'm having in my house, which, by the way, if you're in town, I'd love to have you come. Grateful for my podcast yesterday with James Altucher. Grateful for the podcast in general. Grateful for my client who he and I love the Miracle Morning. I was just going up. Grateful for the book, Burn Your Boats, that I've just finished this morning. Grateful for being sore from working out. And I was telling John Broman, our mutual friend, I said, I walk around and I'm just like grateful for the color on the wall. I'm like, that's a really cool wall. So the scribing has really helped with that. So these are things that I was like, how do people do this? I couldn't figure it out. And I guess the biggest like takeaway I've gotten from your work, man, is it gave me this simple framework. I mean, did I knock out the longest part of my miracle morning is working out and meditation, because each of those take me about 30 minutes. I meditate for 25 minutes. I work out for about 35 minutes. The rest of it takes me maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So it's really quick. What are your thoughts around time wise?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's customized for everybody. For me, it's always a little more time on exercise and the most time on reading, my affirmations, sometimes I'll end up spending. Yeah. So I guess my framework is I'll actually meditate for 10 minutes usually. And then affirmations I'll do for 5 or 10 minutes, depending. So 5 of them, just reading through them. But a lot of times I'm looking at it. I'm always updating my affirmations. I think that's something that to think about, like that as you do your miracle mornings, you continue to evolve and to grow and to learn, and you're reading and you're having new ideas and new ways of looking at the world. As you evolve, your affirmation should evolve with you. That's always been kind of my thing. And so I'm always updating my affirmations. I'm always editing them. I often have a lot of breakthroughs at night, like right as I'm falling asleep. I'm like, oh, and then I'll text myself something, and then in the morning I'll go add those into my affirmations. And and then I'll do visualization is either 0 or 5 minutes, meaning in full transparency, it's my least favorite of the savers. It's the one I resonate with the least. And I usually only do it for specific purposes. Like it's a tool in my toolkit, but not part of my day. It's the only saver that I don't do daily. So for example, though, let's say I've got a speech that I've got to give, right? I will visualize myself on stage, engage, right? And I teach visualization in the book very differently than it's normally taught. Most people teach, visualize the end result or cut out some pictures and put the end result on a vision board. And I think that can be counterproductive because you're tricking yourself into thinking that that result is a foregone conclusion independent of your effort. So to me, an effective visualization technique is, yes, take 60 seconds to see and feel what it's going to be like when you get there, when you finish, when you get to the goal, because that creates desire and motivation. But the most important part of visualizing is visual. And so spend the next, if you're visualizing 5 minutes, 1 minute on the end result, see yourself crossing the finish line, buy in your dream house, whatever. So you know what it feels like. So you're excited to get there. But spend the next 4 minutes visualizing yourself doing today what needs to get done, while visualizing, imagining yourself in a peak state, emotional state. So let's say you need to make cold calls today, right? Visualize yourself picking up the phone and dialing it, and then get yourself into a peak state while you're doing it, whether that's through affirmations combining with your visualization, like, I'm going to make calls today, it's going to be awesome. Give you an example. When I was training for the ultra marathon, I hated running. Because I hated running, I thought, what? So on a scale of 1 to 10 in running, I was a 1. I was like a 0.5. I said, what would a level 10 be? I thought I'd have to run a marathon. I thought, gosh, I've never even run a mile outside of high school PE class, and I hated every minute of it, right? And then, but I have 2 friends, John Vroman being one of them, John Berghoff being the other, that have run ultra marathons, 52 consecutive miles. So when I thought about a marathon, I'm like, wait, that's only half of what the Johns did. Like, that's not level 10, that's level 5. I got to commit to an ultra marathon. So I went from hating running, never run outside of PE class, to going, I'm going to run 52 miles. Visualization. Interestingly enough, Darius, my least favorite of the sabers was arguably the most important and effective during this time. And here's why. I would spend a minute visualizing myself crossing the Atlantic City Finish Marathon. I actually printed off the marathon finish line, and I had it in my Miracle Morning binder every morning. I would look at it. I would imagine crossing it. And that would get me excited and believe it was possible. But the most important part of visualization is I would visualize my alarm on my phone going off at 7 a.m. I would hear it in my head, and I would see it. I would see me like a movie, turning it off, walking into my bedroom, into my closet, getting dressed in my running clothes, walking through the living room, out to the front door, opening the front door, looking at the sidewalk. And as I would imagine myself seeing the sidewalk, I would start saying things like, Hal, you are a runner. You can do anything. Today's run is going to be the best run you've ever had. And by doing this, not only are you training for a marathon, you're becoming the person that you need to be to create everything else you want for your life. Let's do this run. And because I rehearsed that compelling emotional state in that entire sequence, Darius, what would have normally happened when my alarm went off at 7 a.m. is what happens for most of us. Dude, I'll just run tomorrow. I don't need to run. I don't want to run. But guess what? I didn't rehearse that. I rehearsed getting off my couch, going into my closet, getting dressed, going to the front door, opening it, and smiling and feeling excited. And that's exactly what I did day after day after day after day, because what you visualize with a compelling emotion, you are pre-paving in your subconscious, right? So that when it's actually time to either do or not do the thing, right?
Yeah.
You rehearse doing it, so you're infinitely more likely to do it.
I love it, man. You can I tell you what has everything you just said resonates for me, and I just took a note that I wanted. I'm adding a step to mine. Do you mind if I tell you what's worked for me with this?
Of course, please. Yeah.
Okay, so what I realized was, especially if we got a lot of like high level folks that listen to the show.
Yeah.
If you're an achiever, I kind of went the wrong way at first. Not with this, but like I was like, I'm gonna do a vision board, and here are the things I want to have in my life, and here's what my life will look like. Here's what my office, and I mean, I was doing shit like, here's what a private jet I want to buy, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm not really getting anything out of this.
Yeah.
It's cool to look at this stuff because it's cool stuff, but like that's not really changing anything. Totally. And so what I figured out, and this is baked all through my journaling, is who am I trying to be? And I'm like, look, there's really 3 things I'm trying to be in this world. Number 1 is I want to be a caring father, husband, and friend to people I love.
Yeah.
I want to build those relationships. Number 2 is I want to be super healthy and fit. And number 3 is I'm building a private equity business right now, and I want to be successful in private equity and podcasting, right?
Nice.
And so what I do is I'm like, well, what are the things I need to do today to make those 3 things happen? And so I literally close my eyes and I visualize spending time with my son and having talks and playing with them and having a moment with my wife and having a loving moment with her. And I literally just like, how will I need to show up? I do the thing you're talking about. I visualize those moments. And then I do it with business. Like, what deals do I need to, what emails do I need to send? What are the things I need to do to show up to make that happen? And I do it. I literally visualize my workout and eating healthy and making breakfast and drinking protein shakes. And like, I just visualize the things that I'll need to do.
The day. Rehearse it. Yeah.
Totally. Right. The thing I didn't do, which I'm going to add, is I'm going to add 1 minute. I love that idea. I'm going to add the 1 minute of what ends up happening when I do that. Right. Yeah. I think that's beautiful, man. And what I was telling, a friend of mine recently, I said, I was tired of trying to like create these end results, because inevitably I was on this hedonic treadmill where I'd hit the end result and I was like, all right, what's next? Right. Yeah. And instead I was like, who do I want to be? How do I want to be? How do I need to show up? And what I love about your work, man, is I get to be in the moment of who I'm trying to be for at least 1 hour. I do an hour and a half hour every day. Yeah. And for me, it just gives me the space to do it. And when I get out of that thing, my day as it normally would start is just starting after I just poured a bunch of gasoline in the tank. Yeah. So man, it is just incredible, the work that you've created. I really could name on one hand the books that have changed my life the most, and this is one of them.
Wow, Darius, that means a lot, man. Especially coming from you, dude, because you're an incredible force in this world.
Thank you.
So I didn't know this until we got on today. Like, it was such a pleasant surprise to hear the impact it's making, man.
The funniest part about this, and you're very welcome, I'm going to tell you that I was like, I got to read the book because Hal's going to come on the show, and I want to be, I want to be prepared. Yeah. So like, and I do that with certain folks. I don't do it with everybody, but I do it with a lot of people that come on the show. I'm like, I want to be knowledgeable. I want to know their work. I want to be able to speak intelligently. I want to ask them good questions about it. This is the first time. I mean, maybe if I get Ed Milet on the show, because his book, or Joe Dispenza, like those guys, their work had a profound effect on my life too. But man, or Dave Goggins, you're one of the you're in line with those.
That's good company I'm to be in, man. Thank you.
Yeah, well, hey, I'll tell you, those are the books I read over the last 12 months that have like blown my mind. So. Yeah. So what are your thoughts, like, for someone that's listening to this? It's like, man, I'm hyped up, but like, what do I do with all this? What's your best advice to someone that wants to really change their life in this way? What can they expect to come out of it? Obviously, some people might be like, well, I'm not you, Darius, and I'm not you, Hal. You guys are like, you're different than me, which I will tell you, you're lying to yourself if you're saying that. But like, what would be your advice to listeners that want to like make these changes?
Yeah, one is if one of the most important beliefs I believe that we can embody is if they can do it, meaning he or she, whoever they are, right? Someone that's done something that you aspire to do. If they can do it, so can I. And sometimes we often do the opposite. We create separation. Oh, they, like you just were doing, right? Like, oh, they must be this, that. They're more this, that. No, everybody was born as a baby in diapers, and then they evolved into who they are, and you can evolve into whoever you want to be, right? So you've got to own that you are just as worthy. I think that's one of the most important foundational affirmations, even for me. I am just as worthy, deserving, and capable of anything that another person is, and I will prove that today with my actions. The first thing is owning that it'll work for you. Like I said, we've surveyed hundreds of thousands of Miracle Morning practitioners, and 70+% every time said they had never in their life been a morning person until they read the Miracle Morning, and now it's part of their life, just like you, right? So if we can do it, you can do it too. And then the other thing is, I saw Mark Victor Hansen, the co-creator of Chicken Soup for the Soul, speak probably a decade ago, and he said something I never forgot. He said, people, they resist change because they always imagine point A, where they're at, and point B, where they want to go, and how far that is. And they think they have to make this quantum leap from A to B. And he said, just lean into it. Just lean into the change you want to make. And so I'll share the same advice I give whenever I give a keynote speech, and the Miracle Morning is my keynote 99% of the time. I end it with this. I say, look, like you said, getting all fired up, inspired, thinking a morning routine is a good idea, that does nothing. You have to actually do it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I said, let me set you up for success by making this as easy as I possibly can. And by the way, I'll say this real quick. That was my North Star when I wrote The Miracle Morning, was not how do I convince people they should do a morning routine? How do I actually make it so that 30 days from now, they've actually done a morning routine, at least 5 days a week? It's a part of their life and they're never going to look back. They would never not do it. How do I actually hold their hand so gradually, both psychologically with the way I guide them through the belief, transformation of I'm not a morning person to maybe I could become one to I'm going to become one. And then logistically, moving the alarm clock across the room. How do you set up your savers the night before, right? Like all of these pieces. And so here's what I recommend. Start either, whether you order the book on Amazon, Miracle Morning. If you go to miraclemorning.com, by the way, right, that's a great hub. If somebody's not ready to get the book, go watch the movie. Like it's 90 minutes and you're going to see how the Miracle Morning is changing millions of lives. Like you're going to see people talking about how it's transformed their lives and like showing you, and then getting the book. I always tell people this, your Miracle Morning, start with 30 minutes because anybody can wake up 30 minutes earlier. Right? I don't care who you are. And yes, in the book, there's a 6-minute Miracle Morning, but I don't recommend starting with 6 minutes because it's too easy to go, they're just 6 minutes. Give yourself at least a half an hour. My first Miracle Morning was 30 minutes. Darius, I know you do 90 minutes now. But 30 minutes earlier, wake up 30 minutes earlier. So set your alarm now, like right now, pause this podcast, set your alarm for 30 minutes earlier, like just, jump and then that will appear. Okay. And then wake up tonight before you go to bed, tell yourself, remind yourself, whether you journal it or you just say it, I'm waking up 30 minutes earlier tomorrow because I want to become the person that I need to be to create everything I want for my life. I'm going to say that again. That's the purpose of the Miracle Morning. I want to become the person, or no, I'm committed to becoming the person that I need to be to create everything I want for my life. And 30 minutes it's worth it. And do one of the savers. That's the last piece. Wake up 30 minutes earlier and do one of the savers. If you want to do all 6, you can. A lot of people, if they've never read the book, they'll wake up 30 minutes earlier and just do the R for reading. And they'll literally just every day, they'll wake up 30 minutes earlier and just read for 30 minutes. And then when they get to the chapter on silence, the first S in savers, they'll bring silence into their morning routine. Now they're reading and meditating or doing some form of silence. Then they read the chapter the next day on affirmations. They bring that in. So you're building your Miracle Morning. And within a week or so, you're doing all 6 savers and you'll be joining millions of people who have had their life transformed by this.
Yeah, man. And it's such good, like, and I forgot to say that was what I did. I'm like, man, I can't wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I get up at 6:45. So I was like, screw it. I'll wake up at 6.
Yep.
I'm just going to wake up and like, I'll get to where I get. And that's such good advice, man. I mean, I could do this show with you for another hour, but I know I want to be respectful of your time. So listen, Hal, I want to end on 2 things. Number one, I want to give people everywhere where they can go to get all the information on the app, the movie, the book, all that stuff. But before we do that, we like to ask all of our guests the same question before we get them off the show. We call it the greatness question. So I'd love to ask you the question. Are you game for that?
Absolutely.
All right. So I think you probably already answered it today because we've talked about a lot of this stuff already, but I'll ask it anyway. What is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
The greatest barrier to creating greatness in your own life. I think it's never deciding that now matters more than any other time in your life. It's the someday mentality, which is perpetual, and people die with it, right? It's, well, I really want blank, but I have a lot of time to get or create or achieve blank. So I won't do it today. And then that's a perpetual mindset that never ends. It's I don't have to do it today. I want blank so I can do it later. And then 10 years go by and you look back, you go, damn, man, the last 10 years, this is not what I thought was going to happen, right? Like you wake up when you're 20, you're like, the world is mine. And then you wake up at 30 and you're like, what the hell happened? I just like wasted the last 10 years, like barely making it, just getting by. And you're like, man, I got to change something. But people don't change. And then 40, it's your 40th birthday. You look back, you're like, damn, what the hell happened to the last 10 years? Man, something's got to change. Right. But you have this perpetual someday mindset. So the number one thing preventing people from changing their life is never deciding that today is the day. It's the only day. It's the day that matters more than any other day in my life. And I will make every day the best day of my life, because there's no good reason not to, but there are an infinite amount of reasons to create everything that you want. And so that's it, man. It's waking up every day with a sense of urgency that I'm going to make today the best day of my life. And it doesn't mean that you are working 12 hours a day. It means that you're clear on the most important areas of your life, and you're doing just one thing every day to move in the direction of what you want for your life. And if you keep moving in that direction, little by little by little, you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I'm here. It took longer than I thought, but damn, the timing's perfect. I can see why it took so long. I had to grow and learn and go encounter the obstacles to get to this moment. And now everything is perfect because I stayed the course. And so you've got to start today. So taking that and wrapping it into the Miracle Morning, right? Don't have that someday mindset where you're like, oh yeah, this is a cool concept. I'll check it out later. I'll do a Miracle Morning later. I'll look at the book later. I'll shelf this until later, right? And like you said, Darius, you wish you would have started 15 years earlier. The best day, of course, is today.
Yeah, next best day. My gosh, I'm so much gratitude, man. So much gratitude for you, for your work, for having you on the show, for sharing all your information with our audience, and just for the changes that I've made in my life because of your work. So thank you so much, Hal.
You got it, brother. And you asked her, I think I skipped over, but miraclemorning.com is the hub for everything. You can get access the books, the Miracle Morning app, the movie, the community. There's a Facebook group with 350,000 people from 100 countries that are probably the most supportive online community I've ever seen. So yeah, miraclemorning.com gives you everything.
Oh man. So you guys heard it here. Go to the website, watch the movie, get the book. You get the book. And like I said, it's hard when something changes your life, it's hard for you not to evangelize it, right? So for me, I'm like, look, I'm just telling you what happened to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm a stubborn pain in the ass.
I could see
so that. Like if it can happen for me, it can happen for anybody. I mean, I'm about as hardcore on this. And I wish Hal could be a fly on the wall when I talk to my friends about this, because I'm ranting and raving about it, because I'm like, you guys have to do this. I'm looking at my wife. I'm like, you got to do this. This is amazing. So I'm going to tell you, listeners, got to go do this. Get the book, see the movie, get the app, go on Facebook, whatever it is you got to do. And listen to this episode again, because there were so many pearls of wisdom on here that you gave that people can really take action on. So with that said, thank you so much, Hal. Appreciate you so much, my friend.
You too, Darius, man. Grateful to be on this journey with you, brother.
Thank you, my friend. And everybody, peace out. We love you guys here at the Greatness Machine. Share this with all your friends and family. Until next time. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.